Okay, so obviously we were writing an answer to the structure question. As you can see, we finished yesterday at the point where we'd highlighted these three things in yellow. Can anyone just remind me why we'd highlighted those three words? Which aspect of the mark scheme are those? Carolina, which aspect of the mark scheme are those three words? Excellent. Subject terminology for structural features. If you could just get your other two colours then available, so stick to the same colours that you were using yesterday. Let's just highlight where we've got quotations, because obviously we need those for our answer on structure. We've got that there. And then what was the third bullet point that we needed to highlight? Can anybody tell me? We've got structural terminology, we've got quotations, and what was the third thing? Lauren, what's the third thing?
Can you do what you said?
Yes, I said 3 bullet points on the structure question. One of the bullet points is structural terminology, so subject terminology, which we've got there. Another bullet point is quotations, which we've got there. What's the third bullet point?
The effect.
On good, so how it interests the reader. So just highlight in your third colour where we've actually done that. So how it interests the reader. Good. So again, you can see that each paragraph that we're writing, each analysis of the structural features, covers the 3 bullet points. Right, so we've spoken then about the beginning and the end of the text. What do we start to write about next? So no matter what the text is, what would you talk about next? Perspective shifts. Okay, so can anyone remind me, look again at the text if you need to, what type of perspective shifts were occurring between paragraphs? Place shifts. Okay, so Lauren, do you want to have a go at telling me how I'm going to start my next paragraph? If you look at that there, we said at the beginning of the text, the writer immediately establishes when the events of the novel are taking place. So we're going to shift place, aren't we? So how might we start this?
During the novel, the writer shifts place.
Okay. Pen's gone green. So yeah, during the extract we'll say rather than the novel, because obviously we've only got a short extract. Go on, how did you phrase it again? During the extract, the writer does what?
Shifts places.
Okay. I'm just going to get the word perspective in there as well. What did I say is another word you can use instead of perspective? It begins with F. Focus, yeah. So the writer shifts perspective from place to place. Now we've got to be specific and back that up with textual evidence. So in the first paragraph, can anybody find a quotation that supports that it's actually set outside? Because that's what we said, didn't we, that the first paragraph is outside. So any quotation that supports that. So have a look at the text. Who can find me a quotation that supports that it's outside, that makes it very obvious? The vile wind, okay. Have we used that already? We haven't, have we? No, okay, good. So, for example, in the first paragraph, the reference to the vile wind proves that the setting is outside. Then if we go on to say, however, so Alicia, tell me what I might write next. So I've spoken about the first paragraph being outside. What might I say after however? Good. So, however, in the second paragraph, let's use the word focus to show that you can use either term. So, however, in the second paragraph, the focus, do you want to use zooms in? Do you think it does zoom in to a specific place? Yeah? Okay. 2, right, can we embed a quotation that supports that we've gone inside in the second paragraph? So see if you can find something. Lauren, can you see anything? A quotation that supports that we've gone inside in the second paragraph?
Something that's not before cabbage or cabbage.
Good. So the focus zooms into the hallway. And then what you can do, have you ever been taught how to use square brackets? Did we do that the other day? I can't remember. But if you want to insert your own word into a quotation that isn't in the text, if you use square brackets, you can actually put a word in to make it grammatically correct. So it zooms into the hallway, which, what was it, Lauren? Smelt of boiled cabbage and old rag mats. Okay, and old rag mats. Okay. Now I think we need to talk about the third paragraph now, the perspective shift to that. Then we're going to get in a comment about interest the reader. So let's just put the connective next. So next, in paragraph 3, well, where do we go in paragraph 3? Shannon, can you perhaps tell me? I know you're still writing that, but where do we go in paragraph 3? Is there a quotation that shows that we've gone somewhere else? Is that an exact quotation? Is that what it says? Brilliant, okay. Next, in paragraph 3, the reader is taken. Obviously, I need to turn the page in a second, so. What was it again, Lauren? Inside the flat. Told you I was going to call you then. Inside the flat. Okay. Put your hand up if you've written that down, if you're up to that point. Brilliant. Done? Yeah. So the reader is taken inside the flat. Now I want to get another quotation in here where we are told that, well, what are we told about inside the flat? Pick one bit of information, a quotation, that describes what it's like in there. Destiny, can you find anything for me? What are we told that it's like inside the flat? Any quotation that describes what it's like. Can anyone find anything? What's it like inside there? Victoria?
Is it like the voice, not boiled cabbage and old rag mats?
Right, we've just put that. Obviously, I think it was just before you came in. Okay, can you see anything? How is the inside of the flat described? Any quotation?
In paragraph 3.
Yeah.
Oblong metal. Mirror.
Okay, alright. What's described as being like a dull mirror? Because we've got to try and embed something into our sentence to make it fluid, to make it fluent and flow. Ladisha, can you see anything? No? So, inside the flat where we are told that there is a fruity voice, keep going, what's it say next? Okay, alright. Sorry, let's put there. So there is a fruity voice reading out a list of figures. Emitted, that means coming out from. Does it mention the word telescreen? Yeah? Emitted from the telescreen. Okay, so we've got loads of textual evidence that there are place shifts. We've got the terminology, perspective shift and place shift. What do we now need to do? Ladisha, what do we now need to do? Good, okay. So now you've got to tell me why these perspective shifts would interest the reader. So have a look at your notes again. You should have written something down for that. So these perspective shifts would interest the reader. Why? Why is it interesting to start outside, go into the hallway and then go into his flat? What did we say was the effect of that? Can anyone remember? What are you becoming more with the narrator, or with Winston, sorry, the protagonist? You're being invited into his flat, you're being taken into his flat. Jordan, what do you think?
He's becoming more open to the audience.
Yeah, so we're getting more of a personal awareness of his character, aren't we, by going inside his flat. So these perspective shifts would interest the reader as we are being invited into Winston's personal space which is allowing us to get a better insight into his character. So what does the writer want us to form with Winston? I've probably just suggested it. People that you go into the houses of, you normally have what type of relationship with them? Oh, what? A close relationship, good. So the writer is encouraging the reader to form a personal connection with Winston. Or what was that word again for the main character in the novel? The protagonist, yeah, good. Okay, now the only thing is, I've not spoken about every perspective shift. How many paragraphs are there in that extract? 4. So we've only spoken about 3. So do you remember what we said, and I think it was you, Lauren, yesterday, what happens, or it might have been Kirsty who isn't here today, what did we say happened to the perspective shift from paragraph 3 to 4? It goes back outside, okay? So, however, in paragraph 4, the perspective zooms out to, now I need to embed a quotation again. So again, is there anyone who can find me a quotation from paragraph 4, the last paragraph, that supports that we've gone back outside, another place shift? Anyone? Ricky, can you see anything in the last paragraph that proves that we're back outside?
Outside even through the shop window.
Okay, good. So, outside definitely. Can you have another look? Is there another quotation that, again, tells me maybe what the weather's like or what's going on outside?
Whirling dust.
Good, give me more of the phrase.
Whirling dust and torn paper into slime.
Okay. Whirling dust, is that right? Okay. So So where the wind is whirling dust into the air, or into the atmosphere. So why do you think the perspective zooms back outside? What did we say about that? Can you remember? What's being proven about the beginning of the text and the end of the text? Has anything changed? No. Okay. So, final comment on the reader. So this would interest the reader. Because we can see that the atmosphere has not changed from the beginning to the end of the text. Okay, right. Once you've written it down then, just get your 3 highlighters, yeah? Please call it. Once you've written it down, can you just get your 3 highlighters? You should know by now what you're highlighting. So you're highlighting the quotations that we've used. You're highlighting the structural terminology, which in this section is words like focus, perspective shift, place shift. We've used words like zoom in, you could highlight. We've used beginning and end again. And then in your 3rd colour, you need to highlight anywhere where we've mentioned interesting the reader. So just quickly do that if you can. I'll do it with you. So I think my quotations were orange. Okay. I'll go back to the previous page in a minute. I think my structural terminology from memory was green, I think. So we've got perspective shifts, we've got beginning and end again, we've got the zooms out, and then we've got our comments about the reader, interest the reader. Okay, you can even have that bit where we talk about encouraging the reader to form a bond with the protagonist, and then this would interest the reader. So, covering all the bullet points again. On the previous page, I've used words like place shift, focus, so if you highlight them as well. Okay, right. What I want to do, because we're probably reaching the point at which, after 10 minutes in an exam, you probably would run out of time. So as I said to you, you don't have to write about all the structural features to get full marks. As long as you write well about the first 3 on that list, beginnings and endings, perspective shifts and structurally significant sentences, you can get full marks. It's just about meeting the bullet points on the mark scheme. So I've just said it, but can anyone tell me what's the next thing we're going to write? So I want to quickly write it, because we're imagining that we're in the exam and we're running out of time. I want to write something about the 3rd bullet point on the structural list, and then I want to read it out so you can hear what it sounds like. So what was the next thing we need to talk about? Felicia? A key sentence, good, or a structurally significant sentence. So, let's start off then. The writer uses structurally significant or key sentence. What paragraph did we say? I know we looked at a couple, but which paragraphs were the sentences in? Did we say that Big Brother is watching you is a key sentence? Yeah, is that paragraph 4, Felicia? Yeah. Okay, so the writer uses a structurally significant sentence. What to write? There we go. In paragraph 4, we are told that Big Brother is watching you. So I know I've not quoted the full sentence, but that's the key part of it really. Well, why would that interest the reader? What did we say? Why is it a key sentence? Because a key sentence is a sentence where there's a turning point or something is revealed to the reader. So, why is it interesting? What notes did you make on that? Ladisha?
It shows a lack of freedom and privacy.
Good. So it reinforces, because we've already got an idea that they're being watched, because we mentioned the thought police earlier on. So it would interest the reader because it reinforces that. Go on, tell me again, Alicia, what did you say?
Have a lack of freedom and privacy.
Good. So the people in this state have a lack of privacy and freedom. So can anyone expand on that? Why does that interest me as a reader even more? Think about the rest of the novel. Why would I want to continue reading this novel if people have no freedom and privacy? Why would I want to carry on? What do people normally do? If they're restricted for too long, what do they normally do at some point? Rebel. Okay, good. So would that normally be an exciting bit of a novel? Good. So in this state, I have a lack of privacy and freedom, which implies that, now we don't know for definite, but there might be an exciting rebellion later in the novel. Okay, I am going to leave it there because, like I say, realistically in 10 minutes, that's probably all you'd be able to write. And that's when you're well practiced at it. How long is it written? Is it about side? Yeah? Okay. So again, 10 minutes, that is realistic. It's about knowing what to talk about. So revision, really important. And then making sure that you prioritise these top 3 structural features. Beginnings and endings, perspective shifts, and structurally significant sentences. Just get your highlighters really quickly. Highlight in the same colours that you've been using the remaining features from the mark scheme. So quotation, we've got there. Structural terminology is when we talk about the structurally significant or key sentence. And then finally, where we talk about interesting the reader. So you should be able to see just from your colouring that we've covered everything throughout the answer. I hope you also notice as well, particularly when we read it out, that there's nothing that is generalised in there. You often get pupils starting answers to questions like this with, the writer has structured the text using a range of structural features. What does that mean? Does it mean anything? Are you getting any credit for identifying a structural feature there? No? You're not, are you? You don't mention anything. So try and avoid these meaningless introductions and don't finish it off with, therefore we can see that the writer has used a range of structural features. Yeah, okay, but it's non-specific. You've been very specific in your answer. Let's have a read of it then. Let's listen to what it sounds like together. So, at the beginning of the text, the writer immediately establishes when the events of the novel are taking place, as we are told that it is a bright cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13, which interests the reader because there is a lack of information about who is involved in the story. Naturally, readers would want to find out more about the protagonist by reading further into the extract. At the end of the extract, the writer foreshadows that Winston might, later in the novel, have a conflict with the thought police, as he tells us only the thought police mattered, which interests the reader because it hints at later action in the novel, which would excite a reader who would be anticipating a climactic point in the middle of the novel. During the extract, the writer shifts perspective from place to place. For example, in the first paragraph, the reference to the vile wind proves that the setting is outside. However, in the second paragraph, the focus zooms into the hallway, which smelt of boiled cabbage and old rag mats. Next, in paragraph 3, the reader is taken inside the flat, where we are told that there is a fruity voice reading out a list of figures emitted from the telescreen. These perspective shifts would interest the reader as we are being invited into Winston's personal space, allowing us to get a better insight into his character. The writer is encouraging the reader to form a personal connection with the protagonist. However, in paragraph 4, the perspective zooms out to outside, where the wind is whirling dust into the atmosphere. This would interest the reader because we can see that the atmosphere has not changed from the beginning to the end of the text. The writer uses a structurally significant or key sentence in paragraph 4, where we are told that Big Brother is watching you, which would interest the reader because it reinforces that the people in this state have a lack of privacy and freedom, which implies that there might be an exciting rebellion later in the novel. Right, I hope you can all hear then how focused it is on structure. Can you all hear that? And at no point have I mentioned anything to do with language. One of the classic errors is that people on question 3 start telling me about similes, metaphors, etc. Totally irrelevant to the question. Your structural terminology are all these things in green, okay? Remember, there are other structural features like motifs, like dialogue, if that's in there, like juxtaposition, narrative perspective, but definitely talk about those top 3, okay?